Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade away as his ship dropped back into normal space. The stars appeared like scattered diamonds against the black void, and somewhere out there waited their destination. First contact with new alien species. "We're approaching the rendezvous point, Captain," said his navigation officer, Lieutenant Sam Parker. "The Zephyrian ships should be here any minute." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. After 3 months of traveling to this remote system, humanity was finally going to meet the Zephyrian Empire. The aliens had sent a message to Earth 6 months ago, written in perfect English somehow. They wanted to talk. "Remember, everyone," Jake announced to his crew, "we represent all of humanity today. Let's make a good first impression." The bridge crew smiled and gave thumbs-up signs. They were excited, too. First contact was the dream of every human explorer. A flash of light appeared in the distance, and then another. The Zephyrian ships materialized out of hyperspace, like ghosts becoming solid. Jake whistled softly. The alien vessels were huge, at least 3 times larger than the Terra Nova. Their hulls gleamed like silver mirrors, and strange energy patterns danced along their surfaces. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Mary Chun. Put on screen. The main viewer flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at an alien face. The Zephyrian had pale blue skin stretched tight over sharp cheekbones. Its eyes were large and golden, with no visible pupils. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are the human representative." "Captain Jake Morrison of Earth," Jake replied with a smile. "It's an honor to meet you, Ambassador. We're grateful for this chance to talk." Kethvar's expression didn't change. "You will follow our ships to the meeting station. Do not deviate from the prescribed course. Do not scan our vessels. Do not transmit any messages." The transmission cut off before Jake could respond. He frowned. That wasn't exactly the warm welcome he'd hoped for. "Not very friendly, are they?" muttered Sam Parker. "Maybe it's just their way," Jake said, though he felt uneasy. "Different cultures, different customs." Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian command ship, Ambassador Kethvar was speaking with Supreme General Voxthal via holographic projection. The general's face was scarred from ancient battles, and his golden eyes burned with contempt. "So these are the humans," Voxthal said, studying the Terra Nova on his screen. "Their ship looks primitive, barely more advanced than our ancestors flew 1,000 years ago." "Indeed, General, I see no threat here. The humans seem eager to please, like domesticated animals." Voxthal laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Have you checked the archive warnings about the species?" Kethvar waved a dismissive hand. "Ancient superstitions. The archive contains warnings about dozens of extinct species, most of them written by cowards. These humans appear weak and naive." On his flagship orbiting the Zephyrian homeworld, General Voxthal was reviewing intelligence reports about humanity. His tactical officers had intercepted human communications, studied their technology, and analyzed their military capabilities. "Sir," said his aide, Commander Zuexnil, "the humans have spread to 47 star systems in just 200 years. Their expansion rate is unusual." "Unusual how?" "Most species take 1,000 years to spread that far. Humans seem to adapt to any environment quickly. They've colonized ice worlds, desert planets, even gas giant moons." Voxthal snorted. "Cockroaches also spread quickly. It doesn't make them dangerous." On the meeting station, Jake Morrison sat across from Ambassador Kethvar in a sterile white room. The negotiations had been going on for 3 days, and Jake was growing frustrated. Every proposal he made was dismissed. Every attempt at friendship was ignored. "We're asking for very little," Jake said, keeping his voice calm. "Just the right to pass through your space peacefully. We have no interest in your worlds or resources." "Irrelevant," Kethvar replied. "Your species is expanding too rapidly. You are becoming a problem." "A problem? We've never attacked anyone. We've never even fired a shot in anger at any alien species. Yet," Kethvar's golden eyes seemed to glow brighter, "your military ships patrol your borders. Your colonies grow larger each year. Your species breeds like animals. Jake felt his temper rising, but forced himself to stay diplomatic. We're just trying to survive and grow like any species. Surely we can find a way to coexist. Back on Earth, President Alan Carter was meeting with his advisors in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House. Admiral Lisa Hayes sat to his right, her weathered face grim. To his left, General Frank Stone was studying reports from the Terra Nova. "It doesn't look good, Mr. President," Admiral Hayes said. "Captain Morrison's reports suggest the Zephyrians view us as a threat to be eliminated, not a neighbor to befriend. What are our options?" President Carter asked. General Stone leaned forward. "We could try a show of strength. Send more ships to the meeting point." "No," the president said firmly. "That might be seen as aggressive. We need to give diplomacy every chance." "Sir," Admiral Hayes said quietly, "I recommend we start preparing for the worst-case scenario, just in case." President Carter nodded reluctantly. "Do it quietly. I don't want to provoke them." On the Zephyrian homeworld, Supreme General Voxthal was addressing the High Command in their Crystal Palace. Hundreds of Zephyrian nobles listened as he spoke. "The human problem grows worse each day," he announced. "Their ambassador continues to make demands. Their ships intrude on our territory. Their very existence is an insult to our superiority." Elder HFY Sandra, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, raised her thin hand. "General, have you consulted the archive warnings about the species?" Voxthal's scarred face twisted with annoyance. "The archive is full of outdated fears, Elder. These humans pilot ships barely capable of faster-than-light travel. They use primitive chemical weapons. They are no threat to the Zephyrian Empire. But the warnings were written by cowards." Voxthal slammed his fist on the podium. "I say we end the charade. Give the humans one final ultimatum. Surrender all their colonies to us, or face complete destruction." The High Command erupted in agreement. Only Elder HFY Sandra remained silent, her ancient face troubled. Back on the meeting station, Ambassador Kavar delivered the ultimatum to Captain Morrison. The human captain's face went pale as he heard the terms. "You're asking us to give up everything," Jake said. "Our homes, our colonies, our freedom. You must know we can't agree to that." "Then you have chosen destruction," Kethvar replied coldly. "You have 72 hours to evacuate your colonies and surrender your ships. After that, we will take them by force." Jake Morrison looked into the alien's golden eyes and saw no mercy there, no room for negotiation. For the first time since leaving Earth, he realized that humanity might be facing its first interstellar war. "I'll need to consult with my government," Jake said. 72 hours, Kethvar repeated. "No more." As Jake returned to the Terra Nova, he couldn't shake the feeling that the Zephyrians were making a terrible mistake. They saw humanity as weak, as primitive, as easy prey. They had no idea what they were about to awaken. The attack came at dawn on New Austin Colony. Marine Colonel Ben Shaw was drinking his morning coffee when the first energy beam tore through the settlement's main dome. The blast was so bright it turned the sky white for a moment. Then came the sound, a roar like thunder that seemed to go on forever. Ben dropped his coffee mug and ran outside. Above him, 3 massive Zephyrian warships hung in the sky like silver death. Energy beams poured down from their weapons, turning buildings into glowing slag. People were running everywhere, screaming, crying, looking for shelter that didn't exist. "Get to the evacuation centers," Ben shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. A beam struck the ground near him, and the heat wave knocked him flat. When he looked up, there was a crater where the Martinez family's house had been. Joe Martinez had been his neighbor for 3 years. Now there was nothing left but melted metal and glass. Ben's communicator crackled to life. It was his wife, Sarah, calling from their home near the school district. Ben, are you there? The school is under attack. Emma and the other kids dash." The signal cut to static. Ben felt his blood turn to ice. His 8-year-old daughter, Emma, was at school. His wife, Sarah, taught there. He ran toward the school, dodging falling debris and energy blasts. The Zephyrian ships moved slowly, methodically, destroying everything in their path. They weren't trying to capture the colony. They were trying to erase it. 3 blocks from the school, Ben found a group of colonists huddled behind an overturned truck. Among them was Dr. Amy Parker, the colony's chief scientist. She was holding a scanner and looked terrified. "Dr. Parker, what are you reading?" "Their weapons are incredible," she said, her voice shaking. "Pure energy conversion. But Ben, there's something else. Their attack pattern, it's completely predictable. They're moving in perfect geometric formations, like they're following a computer program." Another energy beam struck nearby, showering them with sparks. "Can we use that somehow?" "Maybe, if we could disrupt their formation, make them adapt." She looked up at the attacking ships. "They're so advanced, but they fight like machines." Ben helped Dr. Parker to her feet. "Get to the evacuation point. I have to find my family." He left her with the other civilians and continued toward the school. When he arrived, his heart nearly stopped. The building was half destroyed, smoke pouring from the wreckage, but he could hear voices inside, survivors calling for help. Ben climbed through a hole in the wall and found 20 children huddled in a basement shelter. His daughter Emma was among them, tears streaming down her face. His wife Sarah was there too, her arm in a makeshift sling, but alive. "Daddy!" Emma ran to him, and he swept her up in his arms. "We have to go," Sarah said. "The evacuation ships are at the spaceport." They made it to the spaceport just as the last civilian transport was preparing to leave. Captain Jake Morrison's Terra Nova was there too, taking on refugees. Ben got his family aboard the transport, but stayed behind himself. "I'm not leaving," he told Sarah through the transport's window. "Someone has to fight back." "Ben, no. You can't stop them alone." "Maybe not, but I can make them pay for what they did." The transport lifted off, carrying his family to safety. Ben watched it disappear into space, then turned back toward the burning colony. He wasn't alone. About 30 other colonists had stayed behind, mostly former military like himself. On Meridian Prime, the story was the same. Zephyrian ships appeared without warning and began systematically destroying the human settlements. The colonists had no military defenses. They were farmers, scientists, families trying to build new lives. Captain Susan Blake was visiting Meridian Prime when the attack began. Her cargo ship wasn't armed, but she managed to evacuate over 200 people before the Zephyrians noticed her. As she fled the system, she transmitted everything she saw back to Earth. "This is Captain Blake aboard the merchant vessel Star Trader," she broadcast. "The Zephyrians are butchering civilians. They're not trying to conquer. They're trying to exterminate us. Someone has to stop them." On Earth, the emergency session of the Global Council was chaotic. Representatives from every nation shouted at once. President Carter tried to maintain order as reports flooded in from the attacked colonies. "Casualties are in the tens of thousands," Admiral Hayes reported. New Austin and Meridian Prime are completely destroyed. 3 other colonies are under attack. "What about our fleet?" President Carter asked. "The 4th Fleet is en route to Kepler Station. Admiral Brooks is leading them personally." "But, sir," Hayes hesitated, "our ships are outnumbered and outgunned. The Zephyrian weapons are decades ahead of ours." General Stone stood up. "Then we need even the odds. I'm authorizing full military mobilization. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we have." Around the world, the news of the alien attack spread like wildfire. In New York, factory worker Joe Martinez, the same name as the man who had died on New Austin, though no relation, quit his job and enlisted in the Space Marines. In Los Angeles, engineer Kate Sullivan volunteered to work on military upgrades. In Chicago, Dr. Helen Ross began researching captured alien technology. The human response wasn't fear, it was fury. "They want a war?" Joe Martinez said as he signed his enlistment papers. "They picked the wrong species." In space near Kepler Station, Commander Rick Davis led a small patrol of 6 human ships. They weren't much, just converted cargo vessels with military weapons bolted on. But when they spotted a Zephyrian supply convoy, Davis didn't hesitate. "All ships, attack formation," he ordered. "Hit them hard and fast." The Zephyrian convoy consisted of 2 massive freighters and 4 escort ships. The escort ships were sleek and powerful, but they moved in perfect formation, just like Dr. Parker had observed. Davis's ships scattered in all directions, using random flight patterns. The Zephyrian escorts tried to target them, but couldn't predict their movements. While the aliens were confused, the human ships struck from 6 different angles at once. "Target their engines," Davis shouted. "Don't let them signal for help." The battle was over in 10 minutes. All 6 Zephyrian ships were destroyed, and the humans had captured valuable technology and intelligence. More importantly, they had proven something crucial. The mighty Zephyrian Empire could be beaten. Back on New Austin, Colonel Ben Shaw and his volunteers were learning the same lesson. Using guerrilla tactics and knowledge of the local terrain, they had managed to destroy 2 Zephyrian ground installations. The aliens had superior weapons, but they couldn't adapt to unexpected attacks. "They fight like they're reading from a manual," Ben explained to his team as they planned their next strike. "If we could do something they don't expect, they freeze up." Dr. Amy Parker, who had stayed behind to study Zephyrian technology, made an important discovery. Their computers control everything: weapons, navigation, even life support. But the computers can only handle situations they were programmed for. Anything truly random confuses them. "So we need to be more random," Ben said. "More human," Parker corrected. "Unpredictable, adaptable, willing to take crazy risks." On the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme General Voxthal was receiving reports from the attacked colonies. His golden eyes narrowed as he read. "Resistance?" he asked his aide. "The colonies were supposed to be defenseless." "Yes, sir. Small groups of humans are conducting guerrilla attacks. They're using unusual tactics." "Unusual how?" "Unpredictable, sir. Our tactical computers can't anticipate their movements. And, sir, we lost a supply convoy near Kepler Station." Voxthal's scarred face twisted with anger. "Impossible. Humans don't have ships capable of threatening our convoys. The wreckage suggests they use ramming attacks, sir, and coordinated fire from multiple directions. Our escort ships couldn't adapt fast enough." For the first time since the war began, Voxthal felt a flicker of doubt. The humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, easily conquered, but they were fighting back with a ferocity he hadn't expected. "Double the escorts on all convoys," he ordered, "and send more ships to finish off those colonies. I want every human settlement burned to ash." But even as he gave the orders, Voxthal couldn't shake the feeling that he had underestimated his enemy. The humans weren't fighting like any species the Zephyrians had conquered before. They were fighting like they had nothing left to lose. Elder THYSS Andra moved through the ancient archives like a ghost, her thin fingers trailing along crystalline data storage units that held the memory of 10,000 years. The news from the human front troubled her deeply. She had tried to warn the High Command, but they dismissed her concerns as the fears of an old mind. But THYSS Andra remembered things others had forgotten. She had lived through the rise and fall of 3 galactic empires. She had seen species destroy themselves through arrogance and hubris. And now, as she searched deeper into the archives, she found what she was looking for: the progenitor files. Records so old that most Zephyrians believed they were myths. "Computer, display progenitor file 7742. Species classification, humanity." The holographic display flickered to life, showing text written in the ancient script of the galaxy's first spacefaring race. Tetascendra's eyes widened as she read the translation. "Warning. Of all species encountered in our exploration of the galaxy, none present a greater potential threat than the humans of Sol 3. While individually small and physically weak, they possess a combination of traits that make them extremely dangerous when threatened: rapid adaptability, pack loyalty extending beyond family groups, tool usage approaching our own level, and most concerning, a complete willingness to sacrifice themselves for species survival." The file continued. Recommendation. Under no circumstances should humanity be forced into a corner. They respond to existential threats with unprecedented unity and innovation. Previous galactic conflicts suggest that threatening human survival triggers a transformation that turns them from peaceful explorers into implacable destroyers. Final note: the human capacity for both creation and destruction exceeds any species we have cataloged. Approach with respect or not at all. THY Cassandra felt her blood turn cold. The progenitors had vanished 50,000 years ago, but their knowledge was legendary. If they considered humans dangerous, on Earth, the war machine was awakening. In shipyards from Luna to Mars, workers labored around the clock building new vessels. The designs were changing daily as engineers incorporated lessons learned from each battle. Admiral Carl Brooks stood in the command center of the New Geneva shipyard, watching the construction of humanity's largest warship ever built. The USS Defiant was 3 times the size of any previous human vessel, bristling with weapons both familiar and alien. "How long until she's ready?" he asked Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan. 2 weeks for basic operations, sir. But the new weapon systems. Kate wiped grease from her hands. "We're installing Zephyrian energy cannons we captured, but modified with human targeting systems. The aliens use computer control firing. We're going back to human gunners." "Why?" "Humans can think creatively in the middle of a battle. Their computers can't." Kate smiled grimly. "We're turning their own weapons against them, but making them more dangerous by adding human unpredictability." In research facilities around Earth, teams worked frantically to understand Zephyrian technology. Dr. Helen Ross led the main effort at the Beijing Advanced Research Center. Her team had been studying alien equipment for weeks. "The Zephyrians are incredibly advanced," she explained to a gathering of military leaders. "Their materials science is centuries ahead of ours. Their energy weapons are nearly perfect, but they have one critical weakness." She activated a holographic display, showing a Zephyrian ship's internal structure. "They've automated everything. Their ships have maybe 50 crew members where we would use 500. Their weapons are controlled by artificial intelligence. Their tactics are programmed in advance." Admiral Brooks leaned forward. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they can adapt quickly to new situations. When something happens that their computers weren't programmed for, they freeze up while the system tries to find the correct response. In those few seconds, they're vulnerable." Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, the war was intensifying. Colonel Ben Shaw had organized the resistance on New Austin into a proper military unit. They called themselves Shaw's Wolves, and they had become the Zephyrians' worst nightmare. Using captured alien equipment and human ingenuity, they had destroyed 6 major Zephyrian installations. But it came at a cost. Shaw had lost half his volunteers, including his close friend Dr. Amy Parker. She died studying their technology. Shaw told his remaining fighters, "The least we can do is use what she learned to kill more of them." Sergeant Tony Lopez, a former construction worker turned guerrilla fighter, raised his hand. "Colonel, we intercepted some alien communications. They're bringing in reinforcements, a lot of them." Shaw nodded grimly. "Then we need to hit them harder before they arrive. Tony, remember that fortress we've been watching? The one with the communications array? The one that's supposed to be impossible to attack? That's the one. Tomorrow night, we're going to prove it's not impossible, just unlikely. The attack on Fortress ZYXMAR would become legendary in human military history." Shaw's wolves approached the alien stronghold using maintenance tunnels that the Zephyrians didn't know existed. The fortress had been built according to Zephyrian military doctrine, all defenses facing outward, assuming any attack would come from above or from the obvious approaches. The humans came from below. Tony Lopez led the first team to the tunnels, while Shaw's group created a diversion on the other side of the base. The Zephyrian defenders responded exactly as their programming dictated. They moved to counter the obvious threat, while ignoring the subtle one. Lopez's team emerged inside the fortress and captured the communications center before the aliens knew they were there. In the confusion that followed, they managed to take 3 Zephyrian officers prisoner, including Commander ZYXNIL himself. "You cannot succeed," ZYXNIL told Shaw during his interrogation. "The Empire has 1,000 ships for everyone you destroy. You are insects fighting a giant." Shaw smiled coldly. "Insects can kill giants if there are enough of them. And, Commander, you just told us exactly what we need to know. The interrogation revealed the location of the main Zephyrian fleet, a massive force assembling near the edge of human space. Supreme General Voxthal was preparing for a final assault that would crush human resistance once and for all. Back on Earth, President Carter was meeting with his military advisors when intelligence arrived. The Zephyrian main fleet consisted of over 300 warships, supported by supply vessels and troop transports. They're planning to hit Earth directly, Admiral Hayes reported. Our colonies were just the opening move. They want to end this war by destroying our homeworld. General Stone studied the intelligence data. We have maybe 60 ships that could stand against their fleet. The odds are terrible. Then we need to change the odds, President Carter said. Admiral Brooks, how long until your new ships are ready? The Defiant will be operational in 10 days. But, sir, even with our new weapons, we're still massively outnumbered. Dr. Ross spoke up from her seat at the table. What if we don't fight them ship to ship? What if we use their predictability against them? What do you mean? The Zephyrian fleet will approach Earth using standard military formations. They'll expect us to meet them in open battle. But what if we don't? What if we let them come to us and then hit them when they're not expecting it? Admiral Brooks frowned. You're talking about defending Earth by not defending it? I'm talking about defending Earth by being human, by doing something so crazy, so unexpected, that their computers can't process it fast enough. On the Zephyrian flagship, Supreme General Voxthal was reviewing the final battle plans. His fleet was the largest military force the Empire had assembled in centuries. The humans would be crushed, their homeworld burned, their species extinct. But as he studied the reports from the colonial battles, doubt crept into his mind. The humans had proven surprisingly resourceful. They adapted quickly, fought with unexpected ferocity, and seemed willing to die rather than surrender. Sir, his aide reported, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's addressed to you personally. Put it through. The holographic display showed President Carter sitting calmly in what appeared to be his office. Behind him, Voxthal could see the lights of human cities, targets that would soon be ash. General Voxthal, Carter said, I'm calling to offer you one last chance to end this peacefully. Withdraw your fleet, and we can return to negotiations. Voxthal laughed, the sound echoing through his bridge. Surrender, human, it is your only option. I wasn't offering to surrender, Carter replied quietly. I was offering you the chance to save your fleet. You've forgotten something important about humans, General. We learn from our mistakes. And we never, ever give up. The transmission ended. Voxthal stared at the empty display, Carter's words echoing in his mind. For the first time since the war began, he wondered if he had made a terrible error. But it was too late to stop now. The fleet was already moving toward Earth, toward what he was certain would be humanity's final defeat. He had no idea that he was flying into the most devastating trap in galactic history. Elder THY Sandra stood before the Galactic Council emergency session, her ancient voice carrying across the assembled representatives of 40 species. The council chamber on neutral Kilos Prime had not seen such an urgent gathering in 3 centuries. Honored beings, she began, I bring warnings from the ancient archives. The Zephyrian Empire has made a catastrophic mistake. Council Chairman Vethlock, a massive creature with 4 arms and crystal-like skin, leaned forward. Elder, we are aware of the human conflict. It appears to be a minor territorial dispute. No, THY Center's voice was sharp. This is something far worse. I have access to progenitor files. The humans are not what they appear to be. She activated the ancient holographic data, showing the progenitor warnings about humanity. The council chamber fell silent as species after species read the ancient text. This is impossible, declared the Altrian representative. Humans are barely spacefaring. They have existed in our galaxy for less than 3 centuries. Youth does not mean weakness, THY Sender replied. The progenitors cataloged hundreds of species. They feared only one. In the Sol system, Admiral Carl Brooks stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant, watching his fleet take positions around Earth. 60 human warships faced an approaching force 5 times their size. The odds were terrible, but the humans had advantages the Zephyrians didn't understand. "Admiral," reported Captain Jake Morrison from the Terra Nova, "Zephyrian advanced scouts have entered the outer system. The main fleet will arrive in 18 hours. All ships, maintain radio silence until my signal," Brooks ordered. "Remember, we only get one chance at this." The human plan was insane by any military standard. Instead of meeting the Zephyrians in open space, they would let the alien fleet approach Earth orbit. Then, using a combination of hidden weapons platforms and suicidal tactics, they would destroy the enemy from within their own formation. "Sir," his tactical officer asked quietly, "what if this doesn't work?" Brooks looked at Earth hanging in space below them, blue and white and beautiful. "Then we make sure they pay such a price for this planet that they never attack another human world." On New Austin, Colonel Ben Shaw was preparing for what everyone knew would be his final battle. The Zephyrians had brought enough ground forces to wipe out his remaining volunteers, but Shaw's wolves weren't planning to survive. They were planning to take as many aliens with them as possible. "Listen up," Shaw told his fighters as they checked their weapons one last time. "We've got maybe 300 troops left. They've got 3,000. But we know this ground better than they do, and we got something they don't." "What's that, Colonel?" asked Sergeant Tony Lopez. "We got nothing left to lose." The battle for New Austin began at dawn. Zephyrian ground forces advanced in perfect formation, their energy weapons cutting through the ruins of a human colony. They expected the surviving humans to surrender or flee. Instead, Shaw's wolves attacked from everywhere at once. They emerged from sewers, dropped from building ruins, and struck from directions the Zephyrian computers had calculated were impossible. The aliens had superior firepower, but the humans had desperation and intimate knowledge of every street, every building, every hiding place. Tony Lopez led a team that destroyed 2 alien tanks, using nothing but stolen explosives and incredible courage. His last transmission was heard across the human fleet. "This is Sergeant Lopez to any human ships listening. Tell them we made the aliens pay. Tell them New Austin died fighting." The message reached Admiral Brooks just as the Zephyrian main fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 300 massive warships arranged in perfect battle formation, advancing on Earth like an unstoppable tide of destruction. "All human ships," Brooks broadcasted on a tight beam, "remember what we're fighting for. Every man, woman, and child on Earth. Every human colony that still exists. Every future generation that won't exist if we fail today." Supreme General Voxthal studied the tactical displays as his fleet approached Earth. The planet hung before them like a ripe fruit, defended by a pathetically small force of primitive ships. "The humans have deployed their entire fleet," his tactical officer reported. 60 vessels total. "They're maintaining position near their homeworld." "Of course they are," Voxthal said with satisfaction. "Emotional attachment to their breeding ground. We'll destroy their fleet first, then glass the planet." But as the Zephyrian fleet moved into Earth orbit, something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't attack. They didn't retreat. They just waited. "Sir," the tactical officer said uncertainly, "the humans are not responding to our approach. Perhaps they're preparing to surrender." Voxthal mused. "Order all ships to target the human vessels. We'll give them one chance to surrender, then destroy them all." That's when Admiral Brooks sprang his trap. "All ships," he transmitted. "Execute Operation Crazy Ivan. Show them what humans do when we're backed into a corner." The human fleet suddenly scattered in every direction, moving in patterns so random that the Zephyrian targeting computers couldn't track them. At the same time, hidden weapons platforms throughout the solar system opened fire, disguised as asteroids, space stations, even planetary defense satellites. The Zephyrian fleet found itself under attack from dozens of directions simultaneously. Their perfect formation became a liability as ships crashed into each other trying to avoid human ramming attacks. Captain Morrison piloted the Terra Nova on a collision course with a Zephyrian battleship 3 times the size. "This is for every human who died in your colonies," he transmitted as his ship's engines overloaded. The explosion took out the Zephyrian flagship's entire port side. Across the battlefield, Human ships were sacrificing themselves to take down larger alien vessels. The UES Defiant, humanity's mightiest warship, rammed directly through a Zephyrian carrier, her crew singing the Battle of the Republic as they died. What are they doing? Voxtho screamed as his fleet dissolved into chaos around him. Why are they destroying their own ships? His tactical officer, ZYX-Nil, stared at the displays in horror. Sir, they're not trying to win. They're trying to kill as many of us as possible before they die. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, the Zephyrian fleet had been reduced to less than 50 damaged ships. The human fleet was completely destroyed, but they had accomplished the impossible. They had beaten a force 5 times their size through sheer audacity and willingness to sacrifice everything. Admiral Brooks, dying in the wreckage of the Defiant, managed one last transmission. This is Admiral Brooks to any surviving human forces. The Sol system is lost, but we made them pay. The aliens know now that humans don't surrender. We fight until the last breath. Avenge us. On the surviving Zephyrian ships, the mood was not victorious, but terrified. They had won, but at a cost that shook them to their cores. No species in galactic history had ever fought with such desperate ferocity. Sir, ZYX-Nil reported to Voxtho, we're receiving reports from our colonies. Human survivors from the destroyed settlements have somehow organized into resistance cells. They're conducting terrorist attacks across our territory. Impossible. We wiped out their colonies. Apparently not completely, sir. And the attacks. They're not trying to capture territory. They're just trying to kill as many Zephyrians as possible. Voxtho felt a chill run through his body. The humans weren't fighting a war. They were conducting a genocide campaign in reverse, trying to wipe out the Zephyrian species in revenge for the attack on Earth. Sir, ZYX-Nil continued, there's something else. We've detected massive fleet movements from the human outer territories. Ships we didn't know existed, armed with weapons we've never seen before. How is that possible? Sir, I think we severely underestimated human industrial capacity. They appear to have been preparing for a total war from the moment we first made contact. On the bridge of his damaged flagship, Voxtho realized he had made the worst mistake in Zephyrian history. The humans hadn't just been defending themselves. They had been studying his forces, learning from every battle, preparing for a war of extermination. And now, with Earth destroyed and their colonies burned, the humans had nothing left to lose and every reason to hate the Zephyrian Empire. The real war was just beginning. 6 months after the destruction of Earth, the galaxy watched in horror as humanity's true nature revealed itself. What the Zephyrians had mistaken for weakness was actually restraint. What they had seen as primitive technology was actually deliberate simplicity. The humans had been holding back. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, humanity's new flagship. The ship was twice the size of anything the Zephyrians had ever built, constructed in hidden shipyards beyond the galactic rim. Around her, a fleet of 200 human warships moved through hyperspace toward their target, the Zephyrian homeworld itself. Admiral, reported her tactical officer, Commander Rick Davis, we're approaching the Zephyr system. Long-range sensors show their entire remaining fleet is waiting for us. Hayes nodded grimly. The humans had spent 6 months systematically destroying every Zephyrian military installation, every colony, every outpost they could find. Now it was time to end this war permanently. How many ships? She asked. 123, Admiral. They've managed to repair most of the damage from the Sol battle. Hayes smiled coldly. Still outnumbered. They won't make that mistake again. But the Zephyrians had made a much larger mistake. They had given humanity time to grieve, time to plan, and time to build. The human war machine that emerged from that grief was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Supreme General Voxtho stood in the Crystal Palace of the High Command, staring at tactical displays that showed the approaching human fleet. His scarred face had aged years in the past months as report after report came in of human victories. They're not just defeating us, he told the assembled nobles. They're erasing us. Every Zephyrian military facility in 12 star systems. Gone. Our colonies on Vex Prime, Zarthol, and New Zephyr. completely destroyed. They're not taking prisoners. They're not accepting surrenders. They're committing genocide. Elder THWS's Andra, now the only voice of reason left in the high command, spoke softly. I warned you, General. The progenitor files were clear. Never threaten humans, unless you are prepared to face total war. It's too late for warnings, Voxthal snapped. What do we do now? We pray they show us more mercy than we showed them. In space above the Zephyrian homeworld, the final battle began. But it wasn't really a battle. It was an execution. The human ships moved with deadly precision, using tactics that seemed to anticipate every Zephyrian response before it happened. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the heavy cruiser UES Vengeance, led the first attack wave. He had survived the Sol battle by sheer luck, rescued from the wreckage of the Terra Nova by a human patrol ship. The experience had changed him from a hopeful explorer into something much harder. All ships, target their command vessels first, he ordered. Remember, they showed no mercy to Earth. We returned the favor. The human weapons had evolved far beyond anything the Zephyrians expected. Energy cannons that punched through their strongest shields, missiles that adapted to countermeasures in real time, and most terrifying of all, ships that seemed willing to ram enemy vessels even when victory was certain. Why do they keep using suicide attacks? Voxthal demanded as another human ship destroyed itself to take down 2 Zephyrian cruisers. Because they want us to know we're not just losing, Zewyaxnil replied quietly. They want us to know we're being hunted to extinction. The battle lasted only 3 hours. When it was over, the entire Zephyrian fleet was destroyed, and Admiral Hayes was broadcasting surrender terms to the planet below. People of the Zephyrian Empire, her voice carried across every communication channel. Your military is defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are ash. But unlike you, we are not monsters. You have one chance to survive as a species. On the planet's surface, billions of Zephyrians listened as the human admiral continued. Total disarmament. Complete demilitarization. Your government will be disbanded and replaced with a civilian council that answers to human oversight. Any act of aggression against any human will result in immediate destruction of this world. And if we refuse? Voxthal asked, though he already knew the answer. Hayes' response was cold as space itself. Then you join your fleets. The surrender was signed within hours. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, which had terrorized dozens of species across centuries, ceased to exist. In its place was a client state under human protection that came with the implicit understanding that defiance meant extinction. But the humans weren't finished. Admiral Hayes took her fleet to the Galactic Council on Kilos Prime, where the greatest minds of 40 species had been debating the human problem for months. Honored Council, Hayes addressed the assembled representatives. I come not as a supplicant requesting membership, but as a representative of humanity's new galactic policy. Chairman Vethlock's crystal-like features reflected concern. Admiral Hayes, the Council has been reviewing the events of recent months. We are prepared to offer mediation, No. Hayes' voice cut through the chamber like a blade. Mediation is what we offer the Zephyrians. They chose war instead. Now you will hear humanity's terms. She activated a holographic display, showing human fleet positions throughout the galaxy. The assembled aliens gasped. There were human ships and systems they didn't even know humans had reached. Any species that threatens humans will be destroyed completely. Any species that attacks human civilians will forfeit their right to exist. Any species that breaks their word to humanity will find their homeworld turned to glass. The Alterian representative stood up, his blue skin flushed with anger. You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy. You are one species among 40. Hayes smiled, and the expression sent chills through every alien present. The Zephyrians thought the same thing. Asked them how that worked out. She paused, letting that sink in before continuing. However, any species that deals with humanity honestly will find us fair trading partners and reliable allies. We do not seek conquest. We seek respect. Give us that, and we will be the best friends you ever had. Threaten us, and we will be the last enemies you ever face. Elder THWS Indra stood slowly, her ancient voice carrying across the silent chamber. The archives will be updated immediately. The new entry will read, "The oldest rule in the galaxy remains unchanged. Never threaten humans." The Zephyrian Empire learned this lesson too late and paid the ultimate price. Let all future civilizations remember their fate. 1 year later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the exploration vessel UES Pioneer, watching a new human colony being established on a world that had once belonged to the Zephyrians. The colonists were farmers and scientists, just like the ones who had died on New Austin and Meridian Prime. "Strange how things change," said Dr. Helen Ross, joining him at the viewport. She had been promoted to head of the Colonial Science Division after her innovations had helped win the war. "The galaxy was a lot simpler when we were just explorers," Jake agreed. "Now we're the species everyone else fears." "Do you regret it?" Jake thought about Admiral Brooks dying on the Defiant, about Sergeant Lopez's last transmission, about his own crew who had died defending Earth. No, they made their choice when they decided we were weak. We just proved them wrong. Below them, human children played in the colony's central plaza while their parents worked to build a new life. They would grow up in a galaxy where no one would dare threaten humanity again. The rule was simple, and it was carved into monuments on every human world. We offered them peace. They chose war. Never again. In her private chambers on Kilos Prime, Elder THOS Endra added a final note to the archive entry about humanity. Analysis suggests that humans possess a unique psychological trait. They remember everything. Every kindness is rewarded. Every betrayal is punished. Every act of aggression against them is answered with overwhelming force. They do not forget, and they do not forgive. This makes them the most dangerous friends and the most terrifying enemies in the galaxy. The Zephyrian War lasted 18 months. The Zephyrian Empire lasted 3,000 years. Humanity's message to the galaxy is clear. Choose wisely how you interact with them, because they will remember your choice forever. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had taken its place not as conquerors, but as a species too dangerous to threaten and too valuable to lose as allies. They explored new worlds, conducted peaceful trade, and shared their knowledge freely. But on every human ship, on every human world, on every human station, the same message was displayed where everyone could see it. We came in peace. We were answered with war. We will not make that mistake again. The oldest rule in the galaxy had been forgotten once. It would not be forgotten again.